Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. Another epic history video. This is part 2 of the Decembrists, Revolt against the Tsar. Obviously, if we haven't seen the other one, go watch the other one real quick. This is a part 2, of course, and the Tsar just died, and now there's kind of this power vacuum between these Decembrists, or these revolutionaries, as well as Tsar Nicholas, or pre-Tsar Nicholas. So yeah, all right, I hope you're doing well. Make sure you leave a like and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. There you go.
December 1825. The unexpected death of Emperor Alexander has thrown Russia into confusion. The line of succession had been secretly changed from his brother Constantine to a younger brother, Nicholas. As he struggles to assert his claim to the throne, a secret society of army officers prepares to make its move. Most are veterans of the wars against Napoleon. Now they want a political revolution in Russia, an end to autocratic government and the abolition of serfdom. The fate of their revolution will be decided in a single day of chaos and violence on the streets of St. Petersburg. They will be known by the month of their uprising. The Decembrists.
Go.
14th December 1825, St. Petersburg. The Decembrists' Northern Society has its headquarters at the offices of the Russian-American Company, where one of its key members, Rylev, is a major shareholder. Decembrist leaders have been working feverishly day and night to put everything in place for a coup. Rylev is the chief organizer, despite being unwell. Before dawn, they learn that the new emperor has ordered all troops and officials in the capital to swear an oath of loyalty to him that morning. They must act immediately. Once the troops swear the oath, it will be too late.
Oh yeah.
Most Decembrists are officers in the Life Guards regiments, stationed in St. Petersburg. They plan to tell their men that Nicholas, known and disliked by the troops, is usurping the throne from his brother Constantine.
Oh, they're trying to create a little revolt immediately, a little, what do you call it? A rift in the politics. And I think we saw this last video, but I don't think Constantine really wants the throne, does he?
To whom the soldiers swore an oath of loyalty just 17 days ago. There is no plan to involve the Russian people in their revolt. These young aristocrats fear that this would only lead to the bloody chaos of the French Revolution. Instead, they will rely on their social connections and the unquestioning trust of the men under their command. They will then use these troops to seize control of the capital, the emperor, and the government.
Makes sense, like, what's more powerful than the military?
They will form 3 groups. The first will be led by Captain Alexander Yakubovich, a distinguished veteran of the Caucasus War with a reputation for courage.
Don't know about the Caucasus War. That's the first time I've heard that.
His men will seize the Winter Palace and secure Emperor Nicholas and his family. Some Decembrists want to keep the emperor prisoner, but Rylev secretly entrusts his assassination to 28-year-old Pyotr Kakhovsky, an officer recently retired due to ill health. As a cadet officer in the Life Guards Jaeger Regiment, Kakhovsky had been demoted for rudeness, debt, and laziness. He is a loner without friends or money, but dedicated to the cause of liberty.
Perfect assassin archetype right there.
And imagines himself a slayer of tyrants. A second detachment will be commanded by 32-year-old Colonel Alexander Bulatov, a hero of the Napoleonic Wars and Rylev's childhood friend. He's recruited just a few days before the revolt, as the Decembrists seek to involve more senior officers. His unit will seize the Peter and Paul fortress, which contains the city's arsenal and dominates the city center.
that named after the apostles, or is that named after Tsars?
Colonel Prince Sergei Trubetskoy has been appointed dictator or leader of the coup. He is another officer of proven courage from a distinguished family. He will command the main force, expected to number nearly 10,000 men, which will assemble in Senate Square. Trubetskoy will then enter the Russian Senate and demand that it issues the Decembrists' manifesto to the Russian people.
Citizens, you are dissolved! No, he's not going to say that.
Document announces the establishment of a new provisional government until elections can be held, the freedom of the press and of worship, equality before the law, the introduction of jury trials, and the abolition of serfdom and military settlements.
Very Parisian.
Two well-known and respected politicians.
No, this ain't even Parisian. This is, we talked about this, I saw the comments. This is way more Americanized than anything.
Nikolai Mordvinov and Mikhail Speransky would lead the new government to provide continuity and reassurance.
If I am to be emperor for only 1 hour, I shall show myself worthy.
The Decembrists, drawing on their military experience, have come up with a realistic plan to seize control of the Russian capital. But almost immediately, the conspiracy begins to unravel. On a bitterly cold morning, Kakhovsky and Yakubovich come to Rylev's apartments, where the Decembrists have been meeting. Kakhovsky has lost his nerve and is no longer willing to kill the emperor.
Oh. He wants to live longer. Because he knows this goes south. He's a dead man.
At the last minute, Yakubovich has also decided he cannot shed the blood of Russian soldiers and refuses to lead troops against the Winter Palace. Bulatov, who is supposed to lead his troops against the Peter and Paul fortress, does not even show up.
Dang, this is just not gonna happen at this point. An hour later, 2 hours later.
The Decembrists are in a race against time. There are several Guards regiments in St. Petersburg. They must win over enough of them to secure the capital before the regime understands what's going on and moves against them. But they learn that the Senate and Preobrazhensky Life Guards have already sworn the oath of loyalty to Nicholas. This painting was based on sketches made later by the Emperor himself. It shows the Preobrazhensky Life Guards 1st Battalion arriving at the Winter Palace that morning. It's an act of loyalty for which Nicholas will always be grateful.
9?
A battalion of the Moscow Life Guards Regiment comes over to the Decembrists' cause, thanks to the efforts of Captains Shepin Rostovsky, Mikhail Bestuzhev, and his brother Alexander Bestuzhev. But the regime is moving much faster than expected. Officers loyal to Nicholas, now aware of the unfolding coup, arrange for the Izmailovsky, Semyonovsky, and Pavlovsky Life Guards regiments, and the Life Guards Horse Regiment, to swear the oath to Nicholas.
It's
700 men of the Moscow Life Guards Regiment leave their barracks and march through the icy streets to Senate Square. Their rallying cry is, "For Constantine and Constitution." The men of the Moscow Life Guards Regiment take position in Senate Square, near the famous bronze statue of Peter the Great. They are joined by several Decembrist leaders, including Rylev and Kakhovsky. Captain Alexander Bestuzhev ostentatiously sharpens his saber on the base of the statue. Officers and men look resplendent in full dress uniform. But Trubetskoy, the leader of the coup who is to present the Decembrist manifesto to the Senate, is nowhere to be seen. And the members of the Senate have already gone home.
Yeah, they clocked out already. They're going home.
Rylejev leaves to find him.
Halfway through the day already.
Crowds of spectators begin to gather around Senate Square. The general mood is one of support for the Decembrists. This watercolor was painted by Karl Ivanovich Kolman, an eyewitness, and is considered one of the most realistic depictions of the day.
And we gotta pause in this. Look at this, guys. We got people scaffolding up these poles or trees to get a better view. Look at the attire, very middle class. Got these horses with these big old hats on the left. I wonder, like, that's like a captain or a general. And you got all these horses, cavalry-ish individuals. You can see like a little cannon right here on the left of that horse. Got, of course, the Peter the Great statue in the background. Really cool stuff here. Really cool watercolor.
Around noon, Count Mikhail Miloradovich, Governor General of St. Petersburg and a famous war hero, arrives in the square. He rides straight up to the Moscow Life Guards regiment and asks, "Who among you was with me at Kulm, Lutzen and Bautzen?" recalling the great battles against Napoleon. He tells the men they have been lied to, that Constantine has renounced the throne, and they must swear the oath to Nicholas. In Trubetskoy's absence, Lieutenant Prince Eugen Abelensky becomes de facto leader of the Decembrists in Senate Square.
Got a baby face.
He tells Miloradovich to leave, but the general ignores him. Abelensky tries to prick the general's horse with a bayonet to drive him away, but accidentally stabs the general.
How do you accidentally stab somebody? Like, really?
Then Pyotr Kakhovsky steps forward and shoots Miloradovich at point-blank range. The general, mortally wounded, is carried away by his horse. The Life Guards Grenadier...
That is either where everyone's going to immediately be against you or very much with you. That's just like, let's flip the switch immediately. Let's turn the heat up. Okay, so Senate Square, they really don't have much favoritism besides Senate Square and the Moscow Life Guard Regiment. Everyone else has the numbers. We know what numbers do. Pressure.
Regiment and sailors of the Guard declare for the Decembrists.
Oh.
They join the Moscow Life Guards in Senate Square.
Oh.
The Decembrists are gathering a powerful, disciplined force of 3,000 troops in the heart of the Russian capital.
Okay.
But Trubetskoy has still not appeared, and there is little leadership. They stand and wait in the freezing cold,
I was about to say, it's gotta be cold.
while the Emperor begins to mobilize his own forces. Unbeknownst to the men in Senate Square, Prince Sergei Trubetskoy had given up all hope of success early that morning.
When no one showed up and everyone was like, nah, we ain't gonna do it.
As soon as he heard that the Senate had sworn its oath to Nicholas. Possibly suffering some form of breakdown, he wanders around the city, at one point passing by Senate Square itself. His brilliant military record makes such behavior difficult to understand. A Decembrist later recalled, "His absence had a decisive influence upon us and the soldiers too, for with few epaulets and no military titles, no one dared take command." Rylejev, meanwhile, exhausted and sick, spends the day in a futile search for Trubetskoy, before he is forced to retire to bed.
Crazy, man. All right,
The crowd is now several thousand strong, and their loyalties clearly lie with the Decembrists. Some policemen and patrols are even attacked by civilians. When Emperor Nicholas arrives, he and his entourage are pelted with sticks and stones. But Guards units loyal to the government are arriving at Senate Square in force, and take up positions surrounding the rebels. Soon they outnumber the Decembrists 3-1, though not all are willing to fire on their comrades. In fact, Isaac's bridge is deliberately obstructed by troops of the Finnish Lifeguards Regiment, whose sympathies lie with the Decembrists. Others, such as General Orlov, are outraged by the Decembrists' actions. He orders his Guards cavalry to charge the rebels. His men are pelted with stones and timber thrown by the crowd, and the rebels stand firm. Some shots are fired, a few men are hit, and the cavalry withdraw. Several cavalry charges are made that afternoon, with no decisive outcome, and just a handful of casualties.
Dang!
Still, no Decembrist officer takes charge of the situation. There seems to be no plan at all. It is -10 Celsius, and their men have been standing motionless for hours.
Oh my god.
The commander of the Lifeguards Grenadier Regiment, Colonel Nikolai Sturler, arrives to order his men back to barracks.
Oh.
Kachowski shoots him, inflicting another fatal wound.
My god!
The metropolitan bishops of St. Petersburg and Kiev approach the troops and tell them it is their Christian duty to swear the oath to Nicholas. But they are mocked and chased away. The emperor is deeply alarmed by the situation in Senate Square, though many comment on his calm demeanor. He later confides to his younger brother, "The most amazing thing about this story is that you and I were not shot."
It's kind of funny. Dirty.
The short winter day is ending. Nicholas fears that if the standoff continues into the night, the crowds will turn hostile. He now has 32 guns of the Guards' artillery at his disposal. He sends General Sukhozanet to tell the rebels to lay down their arms, or they will be fired upon. It's a
Now that's a deterrent.
bad choice of emissary. Sukhozanet is despised by the troops. They tell him to get lost. As dusk falls, the guns are wheeled forward. The first volley is blank rounds. The next
I like how they did that though, you know, to really show them that, hey, we will do it. We don't want to do it, but we will do it.
is fired over the heads of the rebel troops, but hits several people in the crowd.
Okay. No one, and the funny thing is, no one's going to ever answer to that, probably. No one's going to answer to that. In 18th century, or not 18th, in 19th century Russia, this incident probably where, you know, several civilians most likely died to cannon fire. You shouldn't have been out there is probably what they'll say.
The troops stand firm. The next volley of grape shot is fired directly into their packed ranks. Scores go down.
They're gonna start shooting back.
Under this murderous fire, the troops break ranks and head out onto the frozen Neva River.
Oh no.
Mikhail Bestuzhev tries to organize them for an attack on the Peter and Paul fortress, little more than 1,000 meters away across the ice. But as they form up, they come under more artillery fire.
Oh no, it's gonna be like that. Was it Austerlitz or this happened?
Cannonballs smash the ice. Many drown.
Yeah.
The rest escape as best they can. After a standoff lasting several hours, the military revolt has been ruthlessly crushed by Russia's new emperor. The official death toll is just 80.
It's not bad.
Eyewitnesses claim it is much higher. The Decembrist leaders, who all survived the bloodshed in Senate Square, are rounded up and arrested that night and the following day.
Oh, they're executed.
The Decembrist uprising in St. Petersburg is over. The revolt in the south has yet to begin.
Never mind, it's not over. Oh my, it's not over. Half measures achieve nothing. We want to clear out the crime.
13th December 1825.
The day before?
Tulchin, Ukraine. The day before the St. Petersburg Revolt, Pavel Pestel, leading figure of the Southern Society, is denounced by one of his officers and arrested. The Southern Society's plans for an uprising are thrown into chaos. Sergei Muravyov-Apostol takes over as leader. He receives news of the disastrous uprising in St. Petersburg, but decides to go ahead with the planned rising in the south. On the 29th of December, he is arrested himself, but quickly freed by fellow officers. The next day, he leads 2 companies of the 29th Chernigov Regiment
On the 30th, I'm guessing?
into Vasilkov, where they seize money, weapons, ammunition and supplies. 3 more companies, more than 400 men, join the rebels. The next morning, a revolutionary manifesto, written by Muravyov-Apostol and Lieutenant Mikhail Bestuzhev-Ryumin, is read out to the troops. In the question-and-answer form of a religious catechism, the document calls for an uprising to end autocracy, serfdom and conscription.
Conscription's a crazy one, especially since a lot of these people are military. They're gonna reason with that one more than anyone.
Question: what does our holy law order the Russian people and army to do? Answer: to repent of our lengthy servitude and stand against tyranny and wickedness, vowing that in heaven and on earth there shall be only one emperor, Jesus Christ.
Okay, I see what you're
By the
going
1st of January, Muravyov-Apostol leads a force of 17 officers and 1,100 men. He attempts to march on Zhytomyr to link up with units of the 8th Infantry Division, whose officers are sympathetic to the Decembrist cause.
So they're going on a campaign of sympathy now, let's go.
But his route is blocked by government forces. Then, on the 3rd of January, at Ustimovka, his force is intercepted by troops under General Geismar. Muravyov-Apostol hopes the opposing troops will join him. Instead, they open fire with grape shot.
Always grape shot.
Then the hussars charge.
Which, of course, grape shot's more applicable for smaller groups of people, I'm guessing. Might be more sympathetic to shoot grape shot. What do I know?
Few men are killed, but most quickly surrender. 895 men and 6 officers are taken prisoner, including Muravyov-Apostol, who is badly wounded. His brother, Hippolyte, and another Decembrist officer, Anastasy Kuzmin, take their own lives to avoid capture.
Like cyanide? It's gotta be cyanide, or more ruthless.
The Decembrist uprising in the south is over.
So we're done.
Crushed in just 5 days.
I think we're done. My whole story is in a few words. I loved my fatherland passionately. I desired it happiness. I desired its happiness. Pavel Pestel. We got like 10 more minutes, guys. We got something else coming. Oh yeah, the aftermath. Okay. That makes sense.
In St. Petersburg, the Decembrist leaders are interrogated by Emperor Nicholas in person before they are sent to the Peter and Paul fortress. The Emperor gives instructions on how each prisoner is to be treated, whether they are to be kept in shackles and treated severely or more gently. He despises them all. Trubetskoy he describes as a repellent example of an ungrateful scoundrel. Nicholas sets up a commission to investigate the plot and its origins. 579 suspects are arrested and subjected to repeated interrogations, long periods of solitary confinement, hunger and cold, or feigned sympathy. Many confess freely, revealing details of secret societies and names of co-conspirators. A few resist defiantly. Colonel Bulatov, who was to have led the attack on the Peter and Paul fortress, is so racked by guilt that he kills himself in his cell. There are no trials as such. 5 months later, the commission returns its verdicts to the emperor. 290 are acquitted, 289 are guilty, with 121 judged to be the greatest offenders. A supreme criminal court is formed to carry out sentencing, according to 11 categories of guilt, devised by Mikhail Speransky, the man the Decembrists had hoped would lead their new government.
That's insane, isn't it?
Those found guilty of minor crimes are demoted and sent to fight in Russia's long-running war in the Caucasus, along with the regiments that joined.
Oh, is this against the Ottoman Empire?
The Decembrists. 31 of the Decembrists found guilty of the most serious crimes: conspiracy, rebellion, desiring the emperor's death.
This has got to be treason equal to death.
Are to be executed by beheading.
Whoa.
But Nicholas shows mercy and commutes their sentence to hard labor for life in Siberia.
Probably worse.
Before they depart, officers are stripped of their rank and noble privileges and ceremonially disgraced. Their greatcoats are burned, their swords snapped in half. This is the punishment handed out to Nikita Muravyov, who drafted the Northern Society's constitution for a new liberal Russia, and to Prince Sergei Trubetskoy, the Decembrists' vanishing leader, whose life is only spared because of his family name. 5 Decembrists will not be spared. Pyotr Kakhovsky,
Of course, him. My God.
Sergei Muravyov Apostol, Mikhail Bestuzhev-Ryumin, Pavel Pestel, and Kondraty Rylev. A public death for the chief instigators and conspirators will be their lawful revenge for disturbing the public peace, Nicholas writes to members of the commission. All 5 are sentenced to death by quartering, a brutal punishment involving public dismemberment.
You guys know what quartering is? That's depending on how they do it. Usually you have 4 limbs, your arms and your legs. You're tied with a rope around that, tight, so it stays on. And then you have 4 horses that go 4 different directions.
God and the sovereign have decided my fate. I must die, and die a shameful death, Rylev writes in a final letter to his wife. Pray to God for my soul.
Interesting. Kind of backed off there at the end. Go full force. The tactics of revolution may be summed up in 2 words: to dare. If we come to grief our failure, serve as a lesson to legacy. Our legacy.
13th July 1826. Nicholas commutes the sentence to hanging. But the execution of the 5 Decembrists by the ramparts of the Peter and Paul fortress is badly botched. As the men are hanged, ropes break, and 3 men fall to the ground. What a miserable country. They can't even hang us properly.
So they didn't get quartered? Okay.
Remarks one survivor.
That's so funny.
Spectators appeal for mercy. According to tradition, a man who survives a hanging should be spared.
Because God wanted them to survive, is that why?
Instead, more rope is found.
Of course.
And the second time, there is no mistake. More than 80 Decembrists were eventually sent to Siberia. A few were accompanied by their wives, who voluntarily renounced their own noble privileges to be with their husbands. Conditions in Siberia were not as extreme as might be imagined.
I that's northern China right there, basically today, and that's like Mongolia. So it's not like where the text is reading. It's not that.
Their hard labour was mostly farm work. Wealthy prisoners were sent money from home, which they used to buy supplies.
I wonder if Nicholas knew this.
For active young men, boredom was the greatest enemy. They took up hobbies, played chess, painted. These watercolours were painted by Nikolai Bestuchev, who on the 14th had led the Imperial Guard sailors to Senate Square.
Wow.
Some formed their own academy.
I bet you those are very expensive paintings.
Sharing their knowledge and going on to teach local children and set up schools. They remained hopeful of a pardon, but it proved a 30-year wait. Only in 1856, after the death of Emperor Nicholas, was an amnesty announced for surviving Decembrists. Among them, Prince Sergei Trubetskoy, who returned to Russia and is seen here, photographed in 1857. The Decembrist uprising seemed to have been a total failure. A wildly optimistic operation, poorly planned, chaotically executed, doomed from the beginning. The loss of life, thoughtless and unnecessary. But the Decembrists had mounted the first organized political revolt in Russian history. As such, their impact would prove far-reaching. The recent conspiracy, wrote the British resident minister in St. Petersburg, failed from want of management and want of a head to direct it, and was too premature to answer any good purpose. But I think the seeds are sown, which one day must produce important consequences.
Yeah, 100 years later.
Emperor Nicholas was never interested in reform. The issues of serfdom and a constitution would be around for decades to come. For those who took up the cause of reform, including Russia's liberal intelligentsia and future revolutionaries, the Decembrists were an inspiring example of action in the face of tyranny. The father of Russian socialism, Alexander Gertsen, was their great champion. He named his political journal Polar Star, after Relev's own. On the cover of its first edition, the 5 Decembrist martyrs. In time, the Decembrists' aims, the abolition of serfdom, a constitution, even the overthrow of the Tsar, were achieved. But their brand of 19th century liberalism was soon overtaken by events in Russia. The communists never completely approved of the aristocratic Decembrists, though in 1925 they did allow Senate Square to be renamed Decembrist Square.
Really?
To mark the 100th anniversary of the Rising.
Wow.
But the Decembrists' place in Russian history remains highly contested to this day.
The Union of Salvation. It's a movie? Gotta check that out. Is it in Russian? Hopefully it's dubbed.
A 2019 Russian blockbuster film was accused of trivializing the Decembrists and their aims. Others called for the film to be shown in schools. While in 2008, the St. Petersburg Square where the Decembrists made their famous stand was renamed again, back to Senate Square. The Decembrists continue to serve as a warning to some, an inspiration to others. All that is certain is the Decembrists have not been consigned to history just yet.
What a freaking series, guys. Let's combat our thoughts real quick. Combat all the thoughts. We're gonna get to a good image as I talk. Good image. I think this is right before some of the stuff goes down. All right, so what a series. First off, amazing job by Epic History when it comes to the choreography of the times of these events that happened, as well as putting in great media pieces like this. Go subscribe to Epic History. These the amazing individuals that brought us the Napoleonic series reacted to together, as well as some others, and future ones as well. We got so much more videos to watch by them. But the Decembrist revolution, or not revolution, revolt, really. Let's talk about it. So first off, really humble beginnings. Really interesting cause. They wanted, of course, the abolition of serfdom, which can be looked at like slavery. And we know that it was more of a Western idea, and Eastern ideas don't mesh as closely as the Western ideas do. We see that a lot. They really wanted a lot of things like freedom of religion. They wanted things where, there wasn't a czar. Their czar was Jesus Christ, not or their emperor is Jesus Christ, not a czar. Conscription's another thing. And I mean, a lot of it's probably through pain and agony of these countless wars that they're having to fight in, whether it be offensive or defensive. The Caucasus Wars really probably hurt the morale probably more than the Napoleonic. The Napoleonic was more of a defensive war. It's interesting to me though, like if these individuals showed up for work on the day of reckoning, and by who I mean by showing up, because I can't remember their names by heart, because I'm sorry, it's hard for me with these Russian names. I'll get it eventually. I'll get better at like recognizing and remembering Russian names. I'm the same way with doing Arabic names right now with our series that we're doing for early Muslim expansion. It's just, I'm not used to those names on a daily basis. It's hard to kind of put that in the bookshelf in my mind, if that makes sense. File cabinet. So when these 5 individuals wake up on the day of reckoning, they have cold feet. And I think it's really because they didn't think that they could pull it off. So like if they were able to look in the mirror, not look in the mirror, look in the glass ball and know that they could have pulled it off a little bit, they probably would have gone full force. And who would have known, like if they had a leader in Senate Square direct these men to take more and to grow empathy, get more officers. Pressure works, guys. If they had majority rule on the military front, doesn't matter what Tsar Nicholas has to say. He can say all he wants. And these people that came, the one regiment that came with the cannons, and that he did not like the Decembrists, he would have been outnumbered too. So like it wouldn't have mattered. It would have been like a civil war, more than likely. It wouldn't have been like a total collapse. You would have Constantine you would have brother versus brother. Because trust me, brothers have money. Both these brothers would have had money. I don't think we see a Russian civil war. I think that's exactly what we see. We see the Russian Civil War go up 90 years. But because these guys did not show up, it didn't happen. And every event after 1825 continuously happened to 1917. That's my opinion. Now, that's if these guys showed up and their effect of showing up enacted more men to stay on the cause and not die a horrible, sad death, humiliating death. As for like the people going to Siberia, that was like a celebrity prison assignment, it seems like. So I'm sure that they felt like they got off on a good one. Those 5 that died, they were martyrs. Obviously martyrs. But yeah, very interesting series. I'll continuously kind of like expand on this, and I'm glad that we watched it and reacted to it together. So I appreciate you guys. Now, your next homework assignment, what comes next? What do we react to next? And I want to stay within the 19th century Europe side of things. I know there's so much going on in the world in the 19th century, but I really want to compartmentalize this so we can continuously build off these videos and whatnot. So anyways, I appreciate you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for next time. Peace out. Bye.